Hello everybody, I'm Josh Bode. Each week, join myself and an expert line panel dissect the latest sports news from some of the nation's most elite college programs here in Bloomington to some of the biggest stadiums and stages around the world. Stick around because we have a great show coming up on The Toss-Up. There are plenty of things that make sports great, but rivalries are one of the best of them. Whether it's a historical rivalry, a budding rivalry, or a rivalry between players, they always make for must-watch TV. With so many storyline-filled rivalries, it's going to be tough to choose which ones are the best. But here to break them down are Ben Haller, Lauren Boer, and Ben Fitzsimons. How are y'all doing tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Josh.
All right, we're going to jump right into it, and we're not going to avoid the big question. Lauren, I'm going to start with you. What is the best rivalry in all of sports?
I would say it has to be Michigan-Ohio State for college football. I mean, these teams have this game marked down on their calendar. It's the last game of the year. Everything leads up to this game. No matter how these teams are playing, it doesn't matter to them. You have to beat the team up north or you have to beat the Buckeyes. This rivalry started back in 1897, and it can be even traced before then when Michigan and the state of Ohio battled for the territory of Ohio. And so by the time these two teams started playing college football, there was already this natural-born border state rivalry going on. And then we move into the later half of the 20th century where there's this 10-year war with coaches Woody Hayes and Bo Schembeckler. And by the time these two teams were playing, it was often for a Big Ten title or a trip to the Rose Bowl or even the national championship. So there was a lot at stake during that time. And it just added to the bitterness between those two teams. And you can even see it in today's games where there's a lot of penalties and a lot of fights during the games. The only word I can use to describe about how these teams feel about each other is hatred. And I think that's just what makes this rivalry so iconic.
Yeah, hatred's a good word, and college football definitely has a ton of rivalries. Ben, I'm going to go to you. What do you think is the best rivalry in sports?
So I'm going to go from college football to the pro, and I got to say Bears-Packers. I mean, they're two of the most storied franchises ever, two of the most winningest franchises in NFL history, and for the longest time, it was a battle back and forth. Great histories, great coaches. Unfortunately, as of recently, Packers and the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, oh my, have taken most of their wins, but give it 4 years, Aaron Rodgers retires, and it's back to the toss-up games and Bears-Packers and the late, cold December games in the snow. Oh, can't get better than that.
Yeah, winning is unfortunately something we've not been able to say about the Bears recently in that rivalry.
That is true.
Ben?
So I guess I'm going to be the only one going with a rivalry that's not one-sided. For me, it's got to be Duke-UNC college basketball, and it's really a rivalry. When you think of all the things that make a rivalry great, it checks all the boxes. Very competitive. Out of the last 100 matchups between the two teams, it's 50-50, dead even. I mean, literally 50-50. And you also have some great moments. Last year, Coach K's retirement tour, almost coached for 50 years, and it was stopped short by an 8-seeded North Carolina team in the Final Four, and Duke had enough talent to win the national championship that year, but it's got a great moment like that. They're both very storied franchise, obviously. North Carolina 6 national championships. Duke has 5. The proximity, obviously some legendary players and coaches. I think that's number one in my mind.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I'm always impressed with the stats. They always seem to have the exact same amount of wins in the last 100 games, and the point differential is always so close as well. And for me, I'm going to take this one to Major League Baseball. I'm going to go Red Sox-Yankees. I feel like it gets a little hyped up. I don't need it on every Sunday Night Baseball, but it's historical. The postseason matchups are always great, and especially 2004. I mean, who could forget that one? And speaking of 2004, Ben, we're going to go to the best moments or individual games of a rivalry. What do you think is the best one?
So I'm going to stick in baseball, and I'm going to stick in the land of Chicago with the Bears, but this time I'm going to the South Side and the White Sox. 2013, A.J. Pierzynski absolutely trucked the Cubs catcher. Emphasis slapped down, and then it was all hell broke loose. Fights galore. I mean, it was crazy. It was what you want in a rivalry. The intensity was up there through the roof.
It was pure chaos. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think my personal favorite one from that rivalry, the Eloy Jimenez home run at Wrigley Field. That one was great. Lauren, what do you think?
I'm going to stick with my college football and Michigan-Ohio State theme. The 2006 game between those two teams, it was number 1 Ohio State versus number 2 Michigan. I mean, you can't get any better than that. In a rivalry game, it was dubbed like the game of the century as well. And then you had top players like Mike Hart, Chad Henne, Heisman winning trophy quarterback Troy Smith playing in that game. I mean, it was such an iconic, well-played game as well with a lot of high stakes.
Ben, round us out.
I got to go to 1982. I'm going to stick in college football realm. I'm going to go to a rivalry that has two struggling programs, Cal and Stanford. Obviously, I think we know where we're going with this. Stanford took the 20-19 lead off a field goal with 5 seconds on the clock, kicked off to Cal, and with 4 seconds, you're kicking off. You're not expecting much. Stanford's band rushes onto the field. There were 5 laterals in the play. They thought the play was dead, but Cal would go on to score with the whole band on the field, take that win 25-20. Just really one of the best moments in all of sports, in my opinion.
I love it, the historical example as well. And for me, I'm going to use what you did in your first one, Duke UNC. I'm going to focus on Coach K's last home game. I thought it was hilarious. They had everything planned for Coach K to win the game right off into the sunset, and they forgot that there was a game to be played. North Carolina came in, upset them, and then beat them in the Final Four, too. In their very first NCAA tournament meeting, UNC upsets them, an 8 seed against a 2 seed. Pretty crazy. Now we're going to go to an undervalued rivalry. We've talked a lot about the big ones. What about an undervalued one? What do you think, Ben?
So growing up in Cincinnati, I got to stick with this one. And this is a rivalry that's undervalued, I think, because they're not as national brands as, say, Ohio State, Michigan, Packers, Bears, Duke, North Carolina. But Xavier basketball, Cincinnati basketball, the crosstown shootout, that's a rivalry to me that is one of the most heated rivalries in all of sports. Obviously, you got the crosstown brawl in 2011, and the NCAA pretty much telling them for 3 straight years that you can't play this game on a campus site. They had to play at a neutral site because of how hostile it was getting, and it's been getting a little one-sided recently. Xavier's won 8 of the last 11, 10 of the last 15, 17 of the last 25, but I think the pure hatred and just being around that's the one, for anyone in Cincinnati, the one date each year that everyone has marked.
I love that one. It's one of my favorite college basketball rivalries. We'll go to you, Lauren.
I'm going to go really random. The Missouri Valley Football Conference, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, why not? I think it's an undervalued rival in college football. I mean, these two teams are playing each other on a national scale when they play each other, which is uncommon for these two teams because they don't play on a national scale like most teams in college football, like the big names, Michigan, Ohio State. And then they're also playing for like a college football trophy as well. And then they often play twice a year, which is pretty much unheard of in a rivalry game. I mean, they play once in the regular season, then often in the conference championship game as well. So I think that's something to note as well.
I love it. And I was hoping someone was going to give an under-the-radar college football one. Ben, what do you think?
I'm sticking in college football. I'm going Army, Navy. I mean, every time you watch a game, you almost get like goosebumps with just everything that's going on, pre-game festivities, post-game festivities. And don't forget that those are 2 football teams that have a storied history and can do stuff in the playoffs and bowl games. But I think it's more about these 2 bases. You got Army and Navy. You got 2 military branches. Everyone that got up, dressed up. It's just a sight to see.
I love that one. And it's always the last game of the regular season, too. It has the spotlight all on it. Ben actually took mine. I was going to say Xavier and Cincinnati. So I'll keep it in college football. It's a pretty big rivalry, but I think it's still undervalued. I'm going to go with the Bedlam game, Oklahoma State. It's always a great matchup, always a ton of points, and I feel like it doesn't get valued as well as like an Alabama-Auburn, but I think it's getting close to them. And we're going to stick in college football. Lauren, I'm going to go to you. The best rivalry trophy.
I'm going to go Paul Bunyan Axe, Wisconsin, Minnesota. I mean, I think it's just a visually cool trophy to look at. I mean, you have your standard like stand with like a object on top of it, but this one's more visual and interactive for the teams. Usually after the game, they like whack it on the ground kind of, which is like fun and different, whereas like most teams just hold their trophy up and like take a picture with it. So I think it's fun, interactive, and like a visual element for the teams.
Ben?
I mean, we are at Indiana, so I mean, I gotta mention the old Oaken bucket. I mean, the story behind it, and then these two teams, we've been talking about in-state rivalries this whole day, and you can't get more in-state bad-blooded than the two of these. If you stop by one of these scores, it's like you can't even mention the other school name. It's that much hatred, and hey, we're the big brother in the relationship, and sometimes you just gotta beat down the little brother once in a while.
2 Big Ten rivalry trophies. Ben, are you staying in the conference?
Yeah, I will stay in the conference, actually. I'm staying with the Golden Gophers, and I'm going to go with the Floyd of Rosedale. I love the origin of it. Back in 1938, the Minnesota governor and the Iowa governor wagered a live pig on the game, and whoever won the game, the pig's name was Floyd, whoever won the game got to keep the pig that year. Floyd unfortunately passed away a while ago, but they kept him. They kept his spirit alive with the trophy, which is basically a statue of him, and I like that one a lot.
I love it. So all Big Ten. I'm going to keep it in the Big Ten. Lauren and Ben actually took mine. I'm going to say the Little Brown Jug. I'll throw that one out too. Michigan and Minnesota. I just love all the Big Ten West trophy games. It seems like every game at the end of the season is played for one, and it's always hilarious. Last question. We're going to keep this one really quick. Best individual player rivalry. Ben, what do you think?
I got to go Nadal versus Federer. I think it was a really cool moment seeing it just a week ago. Nadal, his final match against Federer, and not only was Federer's final match against Nadal, and not only was Federer crying because obviously he was retiring, but Nadal was crying too. It just shows how much that rivalry meant to each other.
I love an individual sport as well. Lauren, what do you think?
I'm going to go with a normal rivalry. I wouldn't even know if I would call it this. Charles Woodson, Peyton Manning back in the day, 1997, battling it out for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, Charles Woodson, defensive player, comes out of nowhere and kind of steals it from Peyton Manning, who was the favorite to win it. I mean, it's also offensive versus defensive player, and that kind of competitive between those two transferred into the NFL as well.
I like it, and I believe, is that the last defensive player to win the Heisman as well?
Last one and only one to win.
That's crazy. Ben, what do you think?
I'm going to go outside the big four sports. I'm going to go into the world of boxing. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. I know none of us were alive to see it, but if you watch back on those fights and if you just read anything about the boxing world, that was what was called the fight of the century. They ended up fighting 3 times. Ali winning the last 2, Frazier by unanimous decision winning the first one. And at the time, it set records for almost everything: attendance, pay-per-view, live views, and it was just a glory to see. And I think even today, that has stayed true in the boxing.
I like it. And so coming up after the break, Ryan Canfield is going to join us in studio to rank Indiana's 3 best rivalries. And we will have quick-fire questions with our panel, choosing between 2 top rivalries. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Before we get to our quick-fire questions, Ryan Canfield is going to break down Indiana's 3 best rivalries. Ryan?
Thanks, Josh. Hey, Hoosier Nation, it's Ryan Canfield here. I'm going to run down my top 3 IU sports rivalries of all time. First, coming in at number 3 is a rivalry that I believe has brewed rather silently. It's Indiana and Kentucky basketball. Who can forget Christian Watford's iconic buzzer beater to knock off the Wildcats in the 2012 season? They aren't slated to play this year, but these two could definitely find a way to meet up in March. Coming in at number 2, we have the battle for the old Oaken bucket. The final week of this year's college football regular season, the Boilermakers and the Hoosiers hit the gridiron with impact. And the answer we already know is coming in at number 1, the Hoosiers and Boilermakers on the hardwood. Whether it's Knight and Katie or Woodson and Painter, this rivalry never disappoints. It's regarded as one of the top rivalries in college basketball and even regarded as one of the top in all of sports. I can guarantee this year's edition will not disappoint. There you have it, y'all. Top 3 IU sports rivalries of all time. Josh, back to you.
Thanks, Ryan. Now on to the quick-fire questions, where we will choose between arguably the 2 best rivalries in each sport. Is everyone ready?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right, we're going to start in Major League Baseball. Ben, I'm going to go to you. Yankees-Red Sox or Cardinals-Cubs?
Yankees, Red Sox. I don't even know if I have to explain myself on that one.
Lauren?
Yeah, Yankees, Red Sox. I mean, iconic stadiums, iconic players.
Stadiums, definitely. Ben, anything different?
Ben's a Chicago guy, and he even said Yankees Red Sox. If that shows you all you got to do with the history with Yankees Red Sox, I'm sticking there.
Well, I went Yankees Red Sox for the best overall, so I think I got to stick with them there. Now we're going to go to the NFL. Bears, Packers, or Cowboys, Giants, Ben?
I think especially because everyone's tired of seeing Cowboys Giants prime time, and especially recently neither team has been that good. I'm going Packers Bears.
I think everyone's seeing both matchups in prime time. I know as a Bears fan, I'm tired of seeing Bears-Packers primetime. Lauren?
I'll go with Bears-Packers as well. I mean, it's the most played rivalry game in the NFL.
Ben, anything different?
I mean, I said they were the greatest of all time. How can I not say Bears-Packers?
Chalk again, interesting. I guess I'll just go Bears-Packers too since I'm a Bears fan. All right, now we're going to go this one historically in the NBA. Celtics-Lakers or Bulls-Pistons? Ben, what do you think?
I mean, as a Bulls fan, I want to say Bulls-Pistons, but, I mean, we've just beat down them this entire year. So I'll go with the more competitive of the ones in the kind of championship building up in the Celtic-Lakers.
Lauren?
I guess we're just sticking to the theme with agreeing with everyone. Yeah, Celtics-Lakers, two of the winningest programs in the NBA, arguably two of the most iconic franchises in the NBA, and they played each other 12 times in the NBA Finals, which I think is noteworthy as well.
Definitely. Ben, what do you think?
I'll take a bullet for the team here. I think I'm going to go Bulls-Pistons, and I think I was talking about earlier on the last segment that not only does it have to have the history, but rivalries. It's hard to consider Celtics-Lakers one of the best right now because they don't play that often. They're in opposite conferences. Bulls-Pistons are in the same division, and they still has that history, so I'm going to go there.
I like your points. I'm going to go Bulls-Pistons as well, and mostly in the late 80s with the Bad Boy Pistons. They really made Michael Jordan with all those postseason matchups, so I think you made some good points. I'm going to go Bulls-Pistons. Now we're going to move to the NHL. Bruins-Canadiens or Flames-Oilers? What do you think?
I got to go Flames-Oilers, kind of opposite of what I was saying. I think this one has a little more history than the other one does, and just the hatred that the two teams have and the two franchises have for each other.
Lauren?
I'll switch it up and just say Bruins-Canadiens.
I think I'm going to go Bruins-Canadiens as well, but I'm going to give you another one. Blackhawks-Red Wings. I think that could sneak up there and even take the one spot in those three.
He's a Chicago guy, yeah.
It's a classic rivalry, and now they're in different conferences. It throws a little wrinkle into it.
It does. But back in the day when they were in the same conference, those were chippy games.
Yeah, I'm going to go Flames-Oilers for this one. The Battle of Alberta, and we saw it in the playoffs this year. I thought it was a lot of fun there. Now we're going to go college basketball, Duke-UNC or Louisville and Kentucky. Ben, what do you think?
Louisville, Kentucky's great. I think it's number 2 in college basketball, but I said Duke. North Carolina is the best in all of sports. I agree with it, and obviously the best in college basketball.
Number 2 in all of college basketball, you think? Is Louisville and Kentucky?
Yeah.
Interesting. Lauren, what do you think?
I'm going to agree with Ben. Best rivalry in college basketball, UNC Duke. I mean, there's Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams just add to that effect of this rivalry.
I'm going to stay in the group with UNC. I mean, if you just go to stadiums or watch on TV, it's always packed, and it doesn't get much louder than that. Maybe Assembly Hall, but.
I figured this one was going to be chalk. I feel like there's not a college basketball rivalry that really comes close to Duke-UNC. I think Xavier-Cincinnati comes close and Purdue-IU, but other than that, I think there's a pretty wide margin. Now we're going to go college football. Ben, I'm going to go to you on this one. It's our last one. Alabama-Auburn or Ohio State-Michigan?
I think we know Lauren's answer in Michigan, so I'm going to go Alabama-Auburn. I mean, who cannot remember that late field goal return for a touchdown by Auburn to win? And Auburn has put some swords in Alabama's armor as of recently, and they've stopped them from going to some of these championship games.
Lauren?
I think everyone knows my answer. Michigan-Ohio State, I talked about it earlier. I mean, even in Michigan's weight room, they have a sign that says, "What are you doing to beat Ohio State today?" So it's always on these teams' mind.
Ben?
I live in Ohio, so I know the hatred that Ohio State fans have for Michigan and Michigan fans have for Ohio State, and I still have to stick with Alabama-Auburn. I think Michigan-Ohio State's just a little too one-sided for me. Even Alabama-Auburn, even when last year was a good example, Auburn wasn't their best year. Alabama lost or went to the national championship, but Auburn still gave Alabama a good fight.
Yeah, I think it went to overtime. That could have kicked Alabama out of the college football playoff too. And I'm going to agree with Ben. I'm going to go Alabama and Auburn. And Ben, you said it, the Chris Davis kick 6 really is what makes me think of that rivalry as the best in all of college football. And that's going to do it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSTV Sports. With that, there's only one thing left to do, so let's toss it up, find out if we'll catch it, and we'll see you next week.